Well, what a surprise. It looks like Centaurworld is already back. Apparently, they made seasons 1 and 2 back to back, so this pretty much answers most of my problems I had with the previous finale. Regarding season 1, I thought it was an enjoyable enough show. It had quirky characters, decent humor, and nice fluid animation. But the story it tried to tell was unfortunately bogged down by unimportant filler at times, which just ended up coming off as padded clutter. When they did introduce the main part of the story, it kinda came and went without any explanation. But this was simply a part 1 of the whole thing, with part 2 going to fully conclude it. So, when it released, I ended up binge watching every episode, in which there was 8 this season. And it was okay. Yeah, I got a lot to talk about, with some good and, well, we'll get to it. Also, just a spoiler warning, I'm going to be talking about everything, so if you don't want any of this spoiled, watch it first. Coming right from the Rift Part 2, Horse and Ryder split up after reuniting. Ryder is going to inform her general of the Nowhere King and his army coming, and Horse stays in Centaurworld to recruit an army for herself to fight back. However, nobody seems willing to budge at all. Even when she learns that there is actual horse stars in the world, they just end up being stuck-up rich dicks just full of themselves. The story this time also cuts back occasionally to Ryder's world, where the art style and animation changes. Water Baby tries to infiltrate the Nowhere King's fortress to see what he plans to do, and witnesses him using the artifact to fuse animals and minotaurs together to make even stronger, bigger beasts. While watching this, I was liking the vibe it was going for. Cutting back and forth would keep the story going in a more consistent structure, and I was looking forward to it. However, the same issues I had with the second half of Season 1 comes right back here. There is so many scenes throughout these episodes that simply waste way too much time. Basically, there is an entire episode dedicated to bird tars who are fans of Horse and the crew. They even mentioned the show itself, and they all say they weren't happy with the Season 1 finale, so they want the group to reenact it and make it better? It goes for a totally meta style of humor that just ends up coming off out of place and messes with the immersion of the world a bit. And of course, there's scenes of just characters doing goofy shit, singing random songs, and Comfortable Doug. It's clear that the writers made him to be a fan favorite joke type of character, but I feel like he just drags down some scenes, and I just personally don't find him funny. So, Horse deals with trying to recruit everyone else, but the others end up doing it instead with their weird tactics, such as Julius convincing the fanbirds to put on a proper finale by helping out in the war, Glendale becoming a spokesperson to the Coltars, and Wamawink deciding to bring everyone together for a hootenanny so they can get along and form together. Horse gets frustrated by all of this, feeling as though everything she tries to do to convince them isn't working, and is also tired of all the random shit that they're doing. She ends up discovering that she has her own special magic ability like the others. She can jump into a person's mind and view their past, in which they call it backstory magic. Funny. Finally, by episode 5, they gave me something I can finally latch onto. We see the backstories of each character, except Julia's for comedic effect, and it's actually pretty interesting. It's just like episode 4 from season 1, but to greater detail. It was pretty effective. The first 4 episodes gave me trouble to really be interested, because really, everyone was starting to get on my nerves. I was feeling like Horse, just frustrated by everything that was going on. Perhaps this was intentional, but it just doesn't make it all that more enjoyable. But finally, things were picking up steam. On episode 6, we actually take a break from Centaurworld completely. It took place in Ryder's world, in which she uses the general's horse, Becky Apples, one that Horse is very jealous of and sings a ranting song about her with Wamawink, because apparently Comfortable Doug can dig between the two worlds. He warns Ryder of what the Nowhere King is planning from Water Baby, who is locked up. So, Ryder takes Becky Apples and sets off to find her. She breaks into the castle, gets Water Baby out, but the scepter just doesn't budge. They then are forced to retreat to think of another plan. While it was a simple episode, I welcomed the change in pace and style. It was pretty refreshing. Episode 7 is the hootenanny, with Wamawing bringing everyone together. However, of course, none of them really get along, and the first 15 minutes or so is basically just more singing, goofy shit, and padding. I'm sorry for sounding repetitive, but that's what it ends up becoming. Repetitive. Also, remember the mysterious woman at the end of season 1? Yeah, what happened to her? She hasn't even shown up once this whole season. Oh, there she is. Well, what the hell? Apparently, she's just taken shelter with the Bear Tar and has been depressed about her decision to not kill off the Nowhere King. The Bear Tar then comes up with the idea to invite her to the Hootenanny to bring her spirits back up. It gets better around this point, when Horse finally convinces them to fight. Then Ryder and Water Baby come back. However, it all goes downhill when the Nowhere King abruptly shows up with his army, starting the battle extra early. Thrown completely off guard and not properly prepared for it, Horse makes a great decision by throwing herself at the Nowhere King and going through his mind. This sets up the finale, The Last Lullaby, which is an hour and 13 minutes long. Hot damn! We're in for a big one. Now, while I've been pretty about this season overall and wished a lot of things were better, I was still at least excited about the finale. I wanted to see if they can actually pull it off well and see if we can have a satisfying wrap-up. So, Horse is now inside the Nowhere King's mind. She is reverted back to her normal self and is stuck inside a dark, empty void. She expresses doubt and regret over her decision, fearing that she may be stuck inside here for good. She apologizes to her friends and Ryder for just leaving them like that and just lays down, curling up. It was a nice scene. But then... What the fuck was that? Was that an attempt to be funny? Granted, this happened before in episode 5, but it was so minor and random that it was just whatever. But this? This was just so unnecessary. I actually had to pause and do something else because I was just so annoyed by what I just watched. You're trying to establish a tone which should be somewhat serious, but no, insert a long-winded fart joke and her sniffing it? What? Out of nowhere, an elk appears to speak with her, who says, "Are you going to fart again?" It's like, stop! What is this scene? Sorry. Gonna try to forget that happened. Anyway, she meets the elk, who appears to be very anxious and stressed about something. Slowly, he begins to reveal to her the truth of who he is. He is actually the Nowhere King himself. He used to be an Elktar on Centaurworld, at a time when the rift was actively open, with humans visiting in and out of the worlds at free will. He meets the mysterious woman when she was younger, who has also learned and adapted magic with her time in Centaurworld. He falls in love with her, but feels as though he will never fit in due to him being an Elktar and with her hanging around humans. One night while talking together, he reveals that he found 2 ancient artifacts that she magically puts together for him. He realizes that this artifact has endless possibilities of magic, that which he decides to test by turning a Root-Tar into an actual human baby. So he inflicts the power on himself, but it ends up splitting him into 2 different entities, one of a human body and one of an elk's body. The human that's split from him is the general, Ryder's general at that, the one she's been taking orders from this whole time. With his selfish desires of wanting to be human, his human self fights against his elk self, and even tries drowning him to get rid of him. But he learns that if he kills his elk self, he will kill his human self. He then decides to send the elk off and lock him into a prison for 10 whole years, so he can finally marry the mysterious woman for himself. When she finds out this truth, she sets him free, but is unable to go with him. Driven insane and full of pain and suffering, he then uses the artifact to start making a family of his own, which is a combination of human and animal, making the Minotaurs. The more and more he uses the artifact, the more it eats away at him, mentally and physically, destroying his body, flesh, and mind, thus making him into the Nowhere King we know now, with the mysterious woman keeping herself away in Centaurworld out of guilt and grief. This was actually a pretty tragic story that I was really getting into. It's nothing too new, granted, but it's still pretty engaging. What's going on outside of the Nowhere King's head? Oh, great. It's Comfortable Doug. Again. Now, I understand that the goofy stuff continues outside because this is a pretty dark story. They have to balance it with humor so that it's not too heavy, so I was fine with it for the most part. With the truth learned, Horse escapes from his mind and tells Ryder that the only way to stop this war is to kill the general, since he shares the same mind and body as the Nowhere King. Now, up to this point, Ryder knows what's going on. She knows the goofiness of Centaurworld, its magic, and why Horse jumped inside him to begin with. They told her she has the power of backstory magic. So if Horse is telling her what she saw and what they need to do, clearly she should listen to her, right? Well, no, she's in denial, and it makes sense. This is her freaking general she's been taking orders from. It sounds completely bizarre. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if her character decided to do a reckless charge into battle, ignoring what Horse said and trying to kill the Nora King herself, in which she does try to do, but not before she says this line.
How could you possibly know what to do? You're just a horse.
What the fuck? This was completely out of character for her. What were the writers thinking with this? And get this, right after this scene, the general stabs her in the back and says, "I can't let you do that. Sorry, kid." What the fuck? And when she's lying there dying, that's when she regrets her words and says, "I'm sorry, you're not just a horse." It was so lazily written. Ugh, it hurts. They even have an emotional scene, but I can't really feel anything because of her saying that line. For how deep and trusting they made their friendship before, this just feels like such a cop-out. However, a pretty great scene does follow up with this, as her main friends bands together and really fights to their heart's content by singing their previous songs, overlapping their verses, which was actually well done. And when the mysterious woman comes back with Becky Apples, she kicks the general off the cliff, follows him down there, and using the scepter, she finally puts him back together one last time. As he's hurt, broken, and in pain, she decides to finally end it for him. Both of them in tears, and singing the last lullaby, she ends his life, thus ending his suffering for good. Not gonna lie, this was very well done. I really like this conclusion a lot. It's dark, it's tragic, but it unfortunately needed to happen. He was too far gone. It would have led to more suffering in the world, so she had to do it. She did. But then back to Ryder. It seems as though they sing together one last time before she apparently dies in Horse's arms, even going limp. Now, while I hated how they decided to make the character go out with that line, this one last scene they have together is pretty effective, especially with Horse vocalizing. After I cut to black, a period of time passes by, and everyone is basically picking themselves back up. And, are you kidding me? She lived? Whatever, she's alive. Anyway, with the Nora King gone and the Minotaurs defeated, the rift is finally open for humans to cross back and forth again. Water Baby and the other shamans come together and decide to make Horse a shaman as well. With this new promotion and fully embracing her magic and friends, they look forward to the future with smiles, songs, and happiness. And what a mixed bag. There was a lot that I did like, but man did they falter in some areas. This whole season was like that. So much potential, yet they didn't fully deliver on everything too well. If I do have to be entirely positive, then that would be the animation. It's pretty great, and especially in this last episode, they put a lot of work into it, and it shows. But man, the script writing in a lot of areas and the pacing of scenes, if only it was more tightly put together with better execution, then I could say the whole season was great. But alas, I have to be honest, even when writing this script, I forgot what even happened in the first 4 episodes, and I watched everything today. Maybe it was just a me thing, maybe this show just wasn't meant for me, but I gave it a try, and I just felt mixed. I'm giving Season 2 of Centaurworld a light 6 out of 10. So, that's my review, guys. I had a lot to talk about, but I'm just being honest here. If anyone does get upset with what I say, please remember that it's just my opinion at the end of the day. I'm sorry that I hated watching Comfortable Dog, fetus bird babies crack out of eggs, and whatever the f*** this was, but it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
J'ai faim, j'ai soif, j'ai bois sans dire.